need to situate this talk a little bit. It's not specifically about annotations, a little bit outside of the field. Also, this is not about a project that's already started development. There's no software that I'm going to show you that isn't purely prototype, which I will show you. So you can take it with you, can't you? These are thoughts about the annotation of webbooks. Just very quickly introduce myself. Boris Anthony. I've been lucky enough to work with a number of organizations and people and companies over the last 15, 20 years, since 95 or so, on the open web, doing strategic and speculative design and prototyping and research. Current focus for about the last year, as I said, we're just getting started. Hugh McGuire and I have just founded Rebus Open Webbooks. And so, yeah, what are we talking about? What is webbooks? And I'm going to situate it very roughly. It's totally more or less a new thing. And I'll show you a brief demo as well. This is a little map I made to situate ourselves as we started talking about it a couple of months ago, where the evolution of the web and how it branched into what we might call Web 2.0, digital journalism, social networks, the whole app layer far above. The green and the blue are basically CMS systems, right? Websites, web pages. Underneath, books evolving since the printing press, last, 400, 500 years. E-books came in a couple of different times with different evolutions, but completely separate evolutionary path. And you can see the two dotted lines there, and it was a question I had asked myself a couple of months ago, which is there going to be a junction? Is somebody from the e-book world going to jump up into the web? Are people from the web going to start coming in? And actually, that is exactly what happened. Just like last week or 2 weeks ago, the W3C announced merging with the IDPF or so. Plan to. Well, it's all good, right? And again, this is all very speculative and forward-looking statements. So we're hoping that this pans out, and we're hoping that webbooks become reality. In terms of web annotation, this is a little bit the space that you guys are all in. You're annotating web pages and websites, and we're hoping that eventually you'll include webbooks in that. I threw this in here because we are going to focus on academic and scholarly publishing. This is not comprehensive. It doesn't have all the types of things, but generally the things that are web pages currently and on websites tend to be journals and papers and abstracts and any number of other things, whereas things like textbooks and monographs, you start seeing them online, but they're something else, and we think they're books. We think they're web books, and hopefully others will agree. My co-founder, Yu, has a great line he likes to use, and I've paraphrased it roughly here, expanding it. What books can learn from the web is how to be bounded while being open, and what the web can learn from books is how to be open but bounded. And by bounded, we mean sort of portable and explicit oeuvre context. It's something that you can have, as opposed to a web page or a website. You can't really have that. It's just sort of something you access. And by open, very important, is sort of hackable. Anybody can jump in and make something. Anybody can be on the web without having to learn Java or something, or rip apart PDFs for that matter. I do have a demo. This is something I built for myself personally. It has to do with my ebook collection. For the record, this is running locally on a web server on this machine. It's not out there. And I'll have to switch to the web browser for that. Cool. Roughly. Yeah, of course. Running locally. I should not have done that. Are you kidding me? There we go. Oh, it broke. Okay. This is my personal ebook library. There we go. These are the covers of all my ebooks. The covers are different sizes based on page counts. This was done out of a desire about 2 years ago already, where I look at my bookshelf at home and I can remember context for each of those books. I can remember where I got it. I can remember something I read about, etc. And I wanted to have that back for ebooks. So I built myself this system. Won't get into any of the details. But so, for example, just to get into annotation, if I go to this book, which I know I read and depressed me tremendously, but I have my annotations here. I highly recommend it, actually. But anyways, I have my highlights. I have my own notes. I've pulled out the table of contents. as somebody here, Christian, mentioned to me yesterday, I've essentialized the book for myself. Not just the book, but my experience of the book. And there's a lot more that I could do here. I just haven't had the time to build all these experiences. One of the important aspects of this is that I can deep link directly into the book and see my annotation in situ. Now, of course, annotation developers here, like you guys, are like, yeah, this is what we do, and it's a huge pain in the ass, and I know that. It's going to become even more complicated once we get into ebooks. One last little aspect of this is I put this together. These are popular annotations of books that I own but I haven't read yet, and they're piped onto a screen in my living room on my bookshelf, actually. And this has caused me to drop everything and run and pick up a book. So there's a discovery mechanism here. So back to this thing, play. Just to quickly show you, that's what it looks like on my shelf. We don't know exactly what web books are yet. I think there's some architectural questions to do with URIs and cloning and versus not just get and post of books, but also I want this book in my system and it's going to be hosted locally in my LAN or my own computer at home or whatever it might be. This opens a lot more questions, and I don't have any answers, but it's the beginning of this. And this, this personal thing is for myself, but once this scales up to a massive size, it gets pretty complex. I'll be around for another couple hours if anybody wants to grab me. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Boris.